Hey, welcome back. I'm here again for week 2 of the devlog. If you missed last week's video, I'm working on a roguelite horde shooter, something between Doom, Quake, and Vampire Survivors. I'm going to keep it real short and simple this time. Last video I rambled on for a little too long, so I'm just going to focus on what was done last week and then what I did this week and where we're going from here. So last week, if you watched the last devlog, we had one enemy type and an invisible shotgun that could not be reloaded. It didn't really feel like a game. There was the beginnings of a game there, but there's no win state, no lose state. So I spent some time this week and I made some good progress on making it feel a little bit more like a game. So let's get right into it. First thing you might notice, get this out of the way, I tweaked the lighting a little bit. I noticed it was a little dark in the last video. Hopefully this is better. I want it to be kind of dark and moody in this level, but I don't want it to be difficult to see enemies, particularly if you're watching it back on YouTube. It's kind of grainy and difficult to see, so hopefully it's a little better this week. 3 main big additions this week. The first is the shotgun. You can probably see it on screen right now. Huge difference to actually have the shotgun spray on the screen. Drawing it was actually probably the most difficult thing I did this week. I didn't realize until I started drawing that this sprite is basically 2 of the hardest concepts for a beginner artist. Perspective and human hands combined into one sprite. So it was a struggle. I spent a couple hours just drawing, redrawing, referring to different references. In the end, I'm not 100% satisfied with what I've got. I do want to take another pass at it, probably add some shading at the very least. But I don't want to spend too much time on it and get caught up here trying to make it look perfect, right? It's good enough for now, I'll say. Part of this change was actually adding in ammo and reloading. It surprised me how adding in just that one feature made this actually feel like a game. Because now, even though the ammo is infinite, and I am planning on keeping the ammo infinite in the full game, just the act of being able to only fire twice with your double-barreled shotgun and then having to reload means you have to manage your position relative to the enemies that are spawning in to make sure you don't get, overwhelmed or snuck up on while you're reloading or something like that. One thing I noticed immediately was that it's really annoying to reload manually after shooting twice because you're emptying both barrels very often. So I added in an auto reload feature. If you shoot twice, it'll automatically immediately reload. I'm planning to have that be a toggle in the settings in the full game. You can, of course, manually reload if you've only shot once. The second thing was enemy attacks. So now the imp can attack you. This was surprisingly simple. I thought it was going to be a little harder, but it basically was just, okay, draw 3 frames of a simple little swipe or slash animation, put them in there, put a hitbox on it that is enabled or disabled if the imp is close enough to the player, and then put a cooldown on it, that kind of thing. So now the imps will swipe at you. This also very quickly made it start to feel like an actual game because now you can run out of health and die. You'll see in the bottom left corner there that you have health. I might add like an actual health bar in the future, but for now it's just the number. And when you get down to 0 health, there's no game over screen or anything yet. It just immediately restarts the level, but you can actually lose now. Another thing here, similar to the auto reloading, I wasn't originally planning on adding this week, but I noticed while I was testing, it's very easy for an imp to spawn behind you and attack you. And since we don't have audio yet, there will be sound cues for like enemies spawning in and attacking and that kind of thing. But without any of that, it's really easy to just all of a sudden die because an imp spawned behind you and hit you a few more times than you realized. So I added in damage indicators, which had little red arrows that keep showing up on screen when I get hit, and that goes a long way, I think, to noticing when an enemy is spawned behind you. Like I said, we'll improve this further with sound cues and that sort of thing, and there will be like indicators on the ground before an enemy spawns. Third and final thing, and I think my favorite addition this week, are 2 new enemy types. So first up, we have the Locust. If you're looking at this and thinking, oh, that doesn't really look like a locust, remember these are demons. This is a lesser demon of famine, a servant of Apollyon. I haven't nailed down all the lore yet, so that's all subject to change. But the idea is that these are little, weak little critters that will eat you. They're different from the imp in that they are small and they are fast. They do the same damage as the imp currently. But if one spawns behind you, it can be real troublesome because it can just take a big bite out of you real quick before you even have a chance to react to it. And of course, they will sneak up through enemy crowds, and they're kind of difficult to see intentionally. Plus, even though they have lower health than the imp, and you can usually one-shot them at most distances, their smaller hitbox means you have a decent chance of missing if you're not, being careful with your aim. So it's a nice little change of pace from the slow walking imp. The other enemy, the bystander, which is actually a former human that's basically dissolved or melted, he do be melting though, is actually even slower than the imp. They spawn in groups, which is a tweak I had to make to the wave spawning logic. Before it was just place them randomly in valid areas, but now I actually have the ability to spawn enemies in clusters. So the bystanders spawn in groups of 4 currently, and they move real slow, and they don't do any more damage than either of the other enemies, but they have a lot more health. It'll take at least 2 shots to kill them, maybe 3, if you are not close enough and miss some of the pellets. Basically, my idea here is these are not like immediate dangerous threats. You're not going to prioritize bystanders, but when things start to get a little more hectic, the further in you go, if you get pushed into a corner, these guys may not be with the main group of enemies following you around because they're slower. So you may end up actually backing up into them. And if you back up into a group of bystanders, they are going to chunk your health because they like to group up. I think these guys are actually my favorite of the 3 enemies so far. Just their design and they the way they spawn in groups and just kind of slowly creep around like a slime. I think they're pretty interesting. All right, well, those are the major things this week. All of that together makes this start to, even just 2 weeks in, we're starting to feel like there's an actual game starting to take shape here. So next week we're going to hopefully get even more game. My primary focus for next week is probably going to be on the shop. There's actually going to be a shop that you can teleport to after every wave to buy new items. And this is the DNA of the roguelite, right? Buying items and tailoring your build. Looking forward to next week. I think the biggest challenge is going to be figuring out what I want the first items to be and actually implementing them. But I'm excited for it because I think it's going to actually start to feel like a roguelite. If I have more time, if adding the shop and the items doesn't take up the whole of the 3rd week, then I'd also like to add in, I have a few more ideas for new enemy types that I'd like to add in. And I also want to flesh out the wave and spawning logic more. Right now it's just spawning in groups of enemies every 6 seconds randomly. So I like to actually have waves that you complete, and then it'll open a portal to the shop. And once we have all that, it'll actually start to feel like a real game, I guess. Thanks for watching, coming back for week 2. If you stuck around since the first video, I'm gonna keep on this cadence as long as I can. So next week, expect to see another video from me. And if you enjoyed, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever. Any engagement with the video helps. So thanks for watching.